It's amazing that you said it's the last acceptable ism. That in and of itself is disconcerting. And so I want to dig into that a bit, but I just have to share a personal story. Last week, I was talking to someone who I was newly introduced to by a member of my advisory board as we we're working on some things. And this person was brilliant, had a wonderful background in sales and media, knew everything chapter and verse. And as we were talking later in the conversation, he said, "Yeah, but you know, it, I forget how it came up. He said, I lost my job a couple years ago due to a downsizing and had been pounding the pavement. And basically, I could not get another job. People love my experience, love my background, so on and so forth. And somehow I always felt like it was because of my age. And
Yeah.
I was blown away. I honestly was blown away by that. When you say last acceptable ageism, what are the signs that it's acceptable?
So the most common sort of way to see that it's acceptable is if you can joke about it and no one bats an eye, right? So you
Mm,
say things like, "Oh, I'm having a senior moment," or "You're too young to remember that," or "I'm dating myself," those kind of things.
hmm
And then in its more kind of insidious forms, you might, let's say you're forming a team to take on a new innovative project, and you're having a conversation. Who should be on
Right.
this team? One of the people you're consulting says, "Well, I don't think that we should include Helen because she's just I just don't think she's got the speed and she's not fast
Mm,
enough." Or
mm,
so you can have this sort of coded ageism that is it's sort of in between conscious and unconscious. But you're
okay.
saying we don't think this person can keep up. We don't think that they
Yeah.
should be part of this innovative team. So that's where it's a little worse. But I think the most common form of it is in these sort of jokes that people make.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, can you please help me with LinkedIn because this stuff is just all you young kids." That
Mm,
kind
got
of
it.
thing. Yeah,
Got it. And so sometimes folks are doing it to themselves, even.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you this from a employer perspective, and I know we're going to get to some things that hopefully will help folks, but I just want to make sure we understand some of the issues here. From an employer perspective, is it more prevalent in certain industries or geographies when it comes to trying to make your way inside of an employment
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah, the two the two industries that are sort of the most incidence of ageism are tech, which
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, and then digital agencies, ad agencies, web work, that kind of thing.
Got it.
We're working with an organization right now called New and Improved. They are a DEI focused consultancy for the ad agency world, and they
hmm
found that like 80%,
Wow.
like yeah, huge
Wow.
numbers of people in the ad agency business, both young and old, feel that they're buttonholed and pigeonholed because of their age.
Mm,
And then in the tech world, there's just this assumption that older tech workers, right?
yeah.
People who've been doing this their whole lives, right, and have accumulated a great body of technical knowledge, still there's this assumption that they're not going to be able to keep up, or they can't just, code 24 hours a day, or
Right.
whatever. So that's the other place that we see it show up.
Interesting, interesting. All right, well, let's open the aperture for folks who may be missing the boat. What is the value that often goes unnoticed in terms of older workers?
I really love that you asked that question because you use the word value.
hmm
We tend to um, measure people's value in terms of their productivity. And there's some really interesting work from the Mercer Workforce Sciences Institute. They found that people's individual productivity levels off,
hmm
around 50, but the presence of older workers on teams increases that team's productivity,
Mm,
which is really interesting. And the thinking is that there's invisible contributions that older people make to the teams that they work on that are hard to sort of pin down or put an
right.
exact value on. And yet we notice over and over again that when older workers are included in teams, those teams perform better. And so that could be things like industry knowledge, right?
Yes.
Or knowledge of just a deep knowledge of your profession and what's gone before. That
Right.
spillover of knowledge into the team helps raise, the productivity of everyone. So
That's good.
that's a real value that older workers bring that we don't really measure, but is really there.
That's good. And it's interesting. Two things jump to mind when you say that. One, we've talked about on this show a couple times hard skills versus soft skills, right? And that hard skills are readily measurable because you can see them, so on and so forth. You can quantify them. Soft skills, not so much, but we also know that over the course of a career, soft skills are the things that help you become more fungible, make you more transferable, help you, I would say, even cross from industry to industry with little challenge. And I have to believe that those older workers also bring a dynamic set of soft skills that help anchor that team in a different way as well. Is that a fair assessment?
It's very fair. In fact, we interviewed employers a number of years back now. We had like a panel, online panel discussion with them, and one employer shared a really interesting story about their sales team. They said that they had, they through networking, they knew a man who was 60 years old who had been
Mm,
doing sales his whole life. He was a leader in sales, and they asked him to come and lead a team. Just I think it was like an interim assignment for like a couple of years, and he revolutionized the team. He turned them
mm,
around. Their productivity went up. Their sales went up, and it was all down to the what you're talking about, right?
mm.
Know how to read a room. Know how to make a judgment call or persuade, know the right techniques to use for sales. Sales is
Yeah.
a great example of where that accumulated soft knowledge really
Mm-hmm.
helps in your terms of your performance.
That's
So
good.
yes, absolutely, that is a fair assessment.
That's very good.